Hello my beautiful people. So something a little different for you this time. You guys are used to seeing me read the tarot for you. You are used to me talking about numerology. It's time for some astrology. We are stepping into eclipse season, and yes, you will see the whole internet and all of YouTube is awash and abuzz with all of the with all about this stuff. I've got my trusty notes here. The reason I'm doing these solar eclipse specials, and we'll be doing all of the eclipse specials, is because not only is it a different energy, I mean, we've had a little dip into it, but this is where it gets real. This is where it gets, intense, and where it gets serious. And because we're switched from the Leo Aquarius axis, which, trust me, I felt, because I am a Leo rising and an Aquarius sun. So I really felt those ones, and actually I can now, looking back on it, really see the benefit of it. At the time it felt like absolute fucking shite, if I'm completely honest with you, because I felt like a ping pong ball in the middle of a storm out at sea. That's just the truth of it. You know, there were moments that were really great that I could see the benefit of, but there were some moments that I was like, do you know what, I don't know how this is going to serve my greater good, but in hindsight, I can see how it worked. So there's a couple of things that I want to talk about before we go into the video itself, right? And I've got, my trusty notes here, because as many of you know, astrology, tarot I can do with my eyes closed, right? In fact, I probably could do it with my eyes closed, even though it's all about the symbols, right? But just from the feeling, I would be able to do that. Whereas astrology is such a bigger and broader subject, and I don't have nearly as many years under my belt in that field as I do with the tarot, with the cards and the symbols there. So I always have notes because I'm just not as practiced. I call myself a baby astrologer. A lot of people say, I think you're being too harsh on yourself, but whatever, it's not about that. So with that said, before we go into your personal, horoscope, eclipse scope, tarot scope, whatever you want to call it, right? Yes, there will be tarot. Come on, that's what I do, right? There's a few things that I want to clarify on. So you see this, I've drawn it out, and yes, it looks pretty, and it looks mysterious, and it's got the symbols on the wheel and all the rest of it, and we're all familiar with what a chart looks like. Well, 90% of people nowadays are familiar with what a chart looks like. The problem that this chart creates is that people tend to see this kind of thing, especially a big event like an eclipse, as just a flash in the pan. They kind of see it like a static moment. And while it is true that the specific moment of the eclipse will imprint your life with a specific type of energy, right? And that's really important to remember. So when you read somebody's birth chart, when you look at somebody's personal astrology, when you see a personal one of these for somebody, what you're actually looking at is a specific moment in time that is imprinted into their DNA, right? There's, all of the stars aligned in a certain way to give you a certain energy that was going to unfold. Astrology breathes, it moves. Human beings are not, we're multifaceted. We move, we breathe, we grow, we change, we evolve. Just like the moon, we are cyclic. We go through great, awesome periods, and we go through low, sort of not so awesome periods. And that's one of the things that you really need to understand. This isn't just an event that will happen on this day and then you can forget about it. It's kind of like a toolbox. Imagine it's like a gift that the universe gives you on a specific day and says, right, here you go, I'm going to give you this, and you get to unpack that over the next 3 to 6 months. It's never just a flash in the pan moment, and this is why people talk about the eclipses so much, and why people often say, well, this will happen, over the next 3 to 6 months, and sometimes even further beyond. Like I said, I can see a lot of the stuff that I'm doing and living and experiencing now in relation to the eclipses that we finished up in Aquarius and Leo. So it's really relevant stuff, but you need to understand it's a process, not an event, right? It's an unfolding of energy that is imprinted into you on the specific day. So pay attention to that day, because it may well have elements of what this energy is going to be like for you over the next 6 months, what it might unfold, how it might grow. But don't let this video, don't let me, don't let anybody ever reduce you or your infinite beingness down to just a specific set of events that are all about your second house is your money. Yes, it does represent that, and it's good to know that. And it's great to see, if we can predict these things accurately, which is wonderful. But don't let anything, any system in the world, astrology, tarot, numerology, don't let me, any other reader, whether tarot reader, astrologer, whatever, don't let anyone or anything reduce you down to those separate sort of compartments. You are a multifaceted being. And it is good for you to, so there's the dualism, bad Rafi. And you are a multifaceted being, and it's important that you allow yourself to be all of that and to grow throughout these processes that take place, right? Don't ever limit yourself to anything that anyone tells you. You always get a chance to choose. Now, before I go off on a complete tangent, I will give you some overviews. So, solar eclipse is an initiatory energy. It's a beginning of some sort, because it's kind of like a supercharged or jacked up new moon that's like, yeah! It's got lots of energy behind it. And when you get a new moon, you've got the sun and the moon together, right? That in itself is the god and the goddess coming together in creation. Now, this one is taking place in Cancer, which is really important for loads of reasons. So the whole axis of Cancer and Capricorn are going to be lit up. Cancer represents the mother, in the fourth house, protection, love, nurturing, nourishment, that place that you go to seek shelter, to seek comfort, or even lock yourself away from the harsh realities of the outside world. It's your feelings, it's your attachments, it's your bonds, right? Whereas Capricorn, and the Cancer is the natural house of the moon as well, so it's really worth keeping an eye on that. And it represents the mother, because it comes in the guise of the fourth house. Whereas Capricorn, where we've got quite a lot going on in the opposite sign, and this is where the eclipses are going to bounce between, right, is the 10th house. This is the external structure, the things out in the world, but it's also the father. It's where we meet authority, it's where we meet governance, it's where we meet the things that we appear to not be able to change. It's where, the 10th house is your career, how you show up out in the world, how you are presented or received by the wider world. So these are really big things to look at, right? And because it's the father, it's the line in the sand that you meet, where you will go no further, where you meet authority, where you get that kind of, no, you will not pass, you cannot do this. And it's not always about the negative stuff. Sometimes it's to hold you back from something or to teach you a lesson, right? So when you see that mother-father axis, that's kind of what's going on there. So it's really important to pay attention to that stuff. What I've talked about, it's a process. Good to look at where this is happening. Right, so try and stay with me on this, and I'm using myself as an example so that you can do this for yourself, right? So look at where the eclipse is taking place, and then think about where that happens according to your sun, moon, and ascendant. So my moon sign, I'll start there, is in Cancer. So this suggests that my inner world, possibly even my home, may change over the next 3 to 6 months. Something about my emotional inner world, or even my home, my dwelling, may very well change because it's happened, or the identity of my home, or something of that nature may very well change, right? As a Leo ascendant, this is happening in my 12th house. My 12th house is all to do with the past, the things that are hidden, that are private, subconscious drives and not necessarily desires and urges, but it can also be hidden enemies. It could be people that don't necessarily, present themselves as one thing, but don't necessarily mean you good. Then finally, as an Aquarius, this is happening in my 6th house, which is all to do with my work. So something to do with my old work, my old workplace, my old work life could be coming through. So those are my big three, sun, moon, and ascendant, right? It's good for you to find out where they are, because it's going to give you that kind of different dynamic of understanding, so that you get an idea of where this is happening, why, not why it's happening, you know why, because of the astrology, how it's likely to unfold, and what that could possibly mean for you. So one of the things that I've put here is it could suggest that things are about to take a big leap forward over the 6 months because of services rendered, right? So the 12th house is the past, and the 6th house is work. So it could be some efforts that I've already sown in my own personal past over the last 6 months may now start to yield results or dividends or rewards, you know, depending on what I've put out there. And I'm currently crossing fingers, toes and bits at the moment, like thinking back like, shit, have I done enough? Hopefully I have. You know, I've done my best to be of complete service to you guys in and of the world. So with that said, let's get to the personal astrology for each sign. Take care. See you in a moment. Sagittarius, welcome to your solar eclipse special with me, Raphael. Let's go straight into it. So this solar eclipse for you, my dear Sagittarians, is taking place in your 8th house, right? So this is one, I mean, I wrote quite a lot on this, so I'm going to try and fit it all into a small amount of time. Your 8th house is the house of sex, death, taboos, you know, primal urges and desires. It's also the house of other people's money. So the thing is, you could be looking as well, because it's also about hidden things. It's also about the occult sciences. This could see you really tapping into your own psychic abilities, right? For some of you, that's not going to be for you, but it could see you really developing a sense of your own intuition. It could see you delving into occult, you know, occult arts, things like astrology, like tarot, you know, occult sciences. And because yours is a sign of education, wanting to know, needing to know things at a deeper level, the fact that this is happening in your 8th house is actually really good for you, because it could be giving you a glimpse not only into how to connect to your own intuition and therefore you know, the cosmos even more. It could see you really being able to tap into what your own innate desires are, what your true motivations are, and seeing about ways to start building that. The thing about the 8th house as well is it's other people's money, right? So through the process of nurturing and nourishing and assisting other people, finding out what their wants are, what their pain points are, their, not necessarily their weaknesses to exploit, but what their weaknesses are, and using the Cancerian gaze or guise of the eclipse to say, right, okay, how can I nourish you? How can I nurture you? How can I protect you? What is it that you need from me in order to grow? By doing that, you're tapping into people's desires, what they want, what they need, how they tick, what really goes on beneath the surface. And when you're able to identify that stuff, you can be that much more effective in your work. You can be that much more effective in your own finances, because people want to hire you, people want to work with you, people want to promote you, because you appear to have your finger on the pulse. You know what people want, what they desire. By knowing those things, I mean, oh, fuck me, you know, if you chose to use this period in the wrong way, and I'd strongly advise you not to, because eclipses are, you know, it's like the finger of God, so to speak. You know, it's not a yod, but you kind of get my drift. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's a fated event. It's where the universe steps in. So always try to use this ability above board. But yeah, you know, it's when you really know people in that way, you know their wants, their desires and their needs, and you can anticipate them, and you can offer what it is that they need in regards to those things. Oh, you become very, very valuable to the world indeed. Right? The other thing as well, this house is about your sexuality and your sensuality, and it could see you really tapping into that, what you desire, what you want, what you need, what you know, what really stirs you in those tingly parts, right? Those are the things that are all found in the 8th house. Now, I've got my trusty notes here, as I always do when it comes to astrology. Yeah, this eclipse could be tapping you into your own innate desires and motivations, and it could see you utilizing new inner resources for creating more abundance in your own life. And that really is it. I mean, they say if you want to be wealthy, you want to be super rich, create something that people genuinely need and is actually going to help them. Create something that does what it says on the tin and you will make a fucking mint. And that is the truth of it. When you offer something that is truly valuable to people, that they genuinely get something out of and it actually helps them, Cancer, nourishing, nurturing, all of that stuff, right? It will benefit you as well because it's something that's truly helping people. The universe works on a system of reciprocation, right? It truly does. What you give out is exactly the same value that you will get back. Speaking of value, that moves us nicely on to my next segue, I might have to say, even wasn't even looking at my notes. You have Saturn and the South Node camped out in the opposite sign of Capricorn, right? So this was on the nodal axis. Saturn is that restricting or limiting factor. Now you're lucky because you've got Jupiter in your first house, so he's kind of alleviating some of that. But Saturn will have put not a dampener, but he will have been making you work a little harder than you would like to see gains when it comes to finances, when it comes to money. Now, because Saturn is there, he's teaching you to look at what you truly value and say to yourself, right, okay, when I get money, how do I use it? What do I do with it? Do I squander it? Do I hoard it? Where am I when it comes to my values? What is it that I believe about money, right? And because you've got the second house there, we're talking about the second house, Raph, because you've got the South Node there, this is releasing your limiting beliefs as it comes to money and finance. It's letting go of that. So your beliefs about, money are dusting up against what you're, because you've got an opposition, right? So they're vying for your attention. How you feel about yourself, how you truly value yourself. And I always say this, you want to make more money, fix your self-esteem. The better you feel about yourself, the more abundant you tend to be. It just happens to be that way. I'm not entirely sure why. Well, I have a few theories, but anyway, I digress, right? So you're letting go of the limiting Saturn belief, letting go of South Node is being pushed out and squeezed out of you, so to speak. And the reason that's happening is because of that South Node axis. So what else is coming in here? This could be, it could be done by learning to balance your own needs and wants with your desires. And in the second house, we find what you truly value and care about and how you value yourself. This is going to give you a glimpse into how you hold yourself back by not valuing yourself as you should. When that starts to happen and you also crack this whole idea of what are my needs? What are my desires? What really emotes me? What do I truly want and desire and drive towards? What is it that I want to create more of and have more of in my life? When you crack the code between these two houses, you watch just how the next year for you goes on to be a very, very abundant one indeed. I mean, this next 6 months is going to be the setup for sure, and it will definitely improve things. But I really believe that once Saturn moves out of your second house into the Aquarius, that's when you're going to see some really massive, massive shifts. So with that said, you've then got Jupiter, your ruler, at home, especially if you're an ascendant Sagittarius. This is in your first house, and it's squaring Neptune in Pisces, which is in your fourth house, right? So as you're looking at this, what's really interesting to look at for me is your first house is you, it's your identity, it's what you're all about. Because you're a Sagittarius, your life is lived through what you believe, how you can connect with people, how you can learn and grow. It's even legal matters as well. Like you find philosophy and law, university, higher education, all of that stuff is found in Sagittarius, right? This is squaring, so your first house is squaring the fourth house, which is your family, those that you're closest to, your roots, your heritage, how you came up, what you were grown up with, what the lineage was that you were given there, right? And because this is happening for you in Pisces, this basically says that home life was very much like, yeah, this is where we, this is where we kind of blend into each other, like what I think is what they think. And actually, that's not the case because you're grown, you're evolved, you're changed into a new being. Your belief structure, what you believe, who you are, how you identify with the world may very well come into conflict with what your family raised you to understand, to know and believe. And because they're having a bit of a dust up there, you're kind of like, and the thing is with a square, it makes you uncomfortable enough. It gives you enough uncomfortable energy to say, right, fuck this. I've had enough of that energy or this experience, so I'm going to change it, right? So if you're having issues with your family based on what you believe and what they believe, and we didn't grow you up to believe that, we didn't grow you up to, well, no, you didn't. But I'm an autonomous human being. So what I need and how I've become and who I've grown into is no longer governed by you. Government, you know, governed, that's really, again, law, you know, all of that sort of stuff you find in the Sagittarius. So it's going to be an interesting one. It looks like you're off, yeah. We'll also see you possibly at odds with loved ones and or their beliefs, because your own are now bubbling to the surface with a deep fervour, which is really nice. And then you've got the Uranus in Taurus, which is sextiling the eclipse. So this is happening between your 8th and 6th houses. So it will see your work routine, your daily routine, your health and fitness, all of that going through a shift. You could find that your work goes through a change of some sort, and it could happen really, really quickly, really sort of spontaneously. Something or someone could come in and reveal something to you. But I think because it's sextile in that 8th house, whatever your wants and needs are that you discover over the next 3 to 6 months will now take more precedence, and you will start to weave them into your everyday. When you start working towards the things that really do motivate you and drive you every single day, that's when you start to see results in the long term, by changing the small things every single day. This sees your work and daily routines being brought into focus. Stay on top of your wants and needs and desires, and be sure to check in with yourself that you are truly on track with what feels right to you. So let's have a look at your card for the eclipse. What does the tarot want you to know for this period ahead? Ooh. You got the High Priestess. Hidden things will come to light. This is, I mean, this is an 8th house card if ever I saw one, right? The High Priestess is all of that stuff that comes from deep within, that comes from the psyche, that comes from, and I talked about psychic abilities and stuff, right? The High Priestess says over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, develop a relationship with your intuition. Find out, not even find out, listen to how it moves to you. How does it speak to you? What do your dreams say? What do your feelings say? Does it come through your gut? Do you feel it as like a wind on the back of your neck? How does your intuition communicate with you? By getting to know that, those deeper aspects of self, and even those hidden aspects of yourself, you can and will become a true powerhouse. I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Let me know how it shapes up for you, if you love it or loathe it. Take care, and I'll see you soon.